The Shining Shrine. The sun had been hanging over the desert for days. At least, that's how it felt to Ethan Cole. He didn't know how long he'd been walking. The wreckage of his single-engine plane was far behind him now, swallowed by dunes and distance. His canteen had run dry 2 days ago. His lips were split, his skin burned. He'd stopped counting the times he'd thought he saw water glinting in the distance, only for it to fade as he drew near. He'd almost stopped hoping, until he saw the shine. At first, he thought it was another mirage, a thin, white gleam rising out of the heat haze. But it didn't waver like the others. It stayed there, steady and clean, like the reflection of moonlight on marble. Ethan stumbled toward it, driven by thirst and instinct. The closer he got, the more defined it became, a structure rising out of the sand. Smooth, pale walls that caught the sunlight and threw it back in blinding flashes. It looked like a building made of glass and bone. When he reached it, he found a doorway, arched and tall, cut clean into the shining stone. Inside was shade, coolness, and water. He dropped to his knees before a stone basin where water rippled gently as though fed by an unseen spring. He drank until his stomach hurt. The air inside the place smelled faintly metallic, like rain on stone. The floor was tiled with white marble veined in gold. Strange carvings decorated the walls, spirals, hands raised in worship, faces without eyes. Food waited on a table near the back, bread, dates, dried meat. Ethan hesitated, but hunger won. The food was dry and tasteless, but it filled him. He collapsed against the wall afterward and slept. When he woke, it was night. He didn't know what woke him, perhaps the sound, a low hum like chanting carried on the wind. The air felt different, heavy and close. Ethan got up, rubbing sleep from his eyes. The desert outside was pitch black, but the shrine glowed faintly, the walls giving off a dull, golden light from within. The chanting grew louder. He crept to the doorway and looked out. Shapes were moving in the dark. Figures. Crawling out of the dunes, dozens of them, their bodies bent and wrapped in tattered robes that dragged in the sand. Their skin was gray and cracked, like dried clay. Some moved on all fours, others walked slowly, unsteadily, as though unused to standing. They carried lanterns made of bone, their flames cold and white. Ethan stepped back into the shadows of the shrine, heart pounding. The figures drew closer, whispering in some language that made his stomach twist to hear. They gathered at the entrance, and one stepped forward, a tall figure with a mask of polished glass. Behind it, Ethan thought he saw faint movement, like something shifting beneath the surface. The masked one raised its arms, and the others fell silent. Then, in perfect English, it spoke. "You have found the sanctuary of the desert. You will not leave again." Ethan froze. "What are you?" No answer, only a gesture. The masked one pointed toward the central altar, where a column of golden light rose from the floor to the ceiling. It pulsed slowly, like the heartbeat of the shrine itself. "Worship," the figure said, "or the desert will take you." They began to chant. The sound echoed off the walls, filling Ethan's head with a low, rhythmic pounding. He backed away until his shoulders hit the cold stone. The air shimmered. The light from the altar grew stronger, bathing everything in molten gold. Ethan felt dizzy. For a moment, he thought he saw faces in the glow. Faces like his own, screaming silently. Then it was over. The cultists bowed before the light, whispering prayers. When dawn approached, they turned and left, vanishing into the dunes as the sun rose. Ethan waited until the last of them disappeared. Then he ran. He didn't stop running until the shrine was a pale speck behind him. The desert stretched endlessly in every direction. He chose a path and kept walking. Hours passed. The sun rose higher, burning away all thought except survival. He kept the shrine behind him, certain he was making progress. But when the sun began to set, the horizon shifted. And there it was again, the same shining shape, the same glint of gold. Ethan fell to his knees. He had walked in a circle. That night he didn't sleep. He sat by the shrine's door, watching the desert. When the chanting began again, he didn't move. Days turned into a blur. The food never spoiled, the water never ran out. Every night the cult returned. Every night they demanded his worship. He tried to ignore them, hiding in the shadows, covering his ears as they whispered. But their voices slipped through the cracks in his mind. They spoke of endless sands, of light that remembers, of a god buried beneath the desert. He tried to escape again. Each time he returned to the shrine. Sometimes he thought he saw something moving under the sand, a ripple, a shadow, something massive. Once he saw a hand, pale and glassy, pushing up through the dune before sinking again. The shrine became both prison and refuge, the only place where the sun didn't kill him, and the only place he was not alone. One night, the masked figure stood before him again. "You resist," it said. "Why?" Ethan's voice cracked. "Because you're not real. I'm hallucinating. I crashed. I'm dying out here." The figure tilted its head. The mask reflected Ethan's face, pale and hollow-eyed. "Then why do you not die?" He had no answer. The figure extended a hand. "The desert offers eternity. Worship, and you will be spared its hunger." Ethan hesitated. His body trembled with exhaustion. He had not eaten in days, yet he did not feel hunger. The light behind the figure pulsed, bright and warm. He reached out, then stopped. The figure lowered its hand. "Soon," it said, and turned away. The next morning, Ethan found carvings on the wall that hadn't been there before. They showed a plane falling from the sky, fire trailing behind it, a man crawling through the sand, then kneeling before the altar. His hands shook as he touched the final image. The man's face was his own. He screamed and threw himself against the wall until blood smeared the marble. But when he looked again, the carvings had changed. The man was standing among the robed figures, his skin cracked and gleaming like glass. That night, he didn't wait for them to come. He walked to the altar himself. The light was blinding now, a living thing. It pulsed in rhythm with his heartbeat. As he approached, he heard voices whispering his name from inside the glow. He felt the pull of it, the warmth, the promise of rest. The masked figure stepped beside him. "The desert is endless," it said softly, "but the shrine endures. The light shelters those who kneel." Ethan's voice was barely a whisper. "What happens if I don't?" The figure gestured toward the desert beyond the door. "Then you walk forever, until even your bones are dust." The light flared. For the first time, Ethan felt fear begin to fade, replaced by something else, something calm and inevitable. He took a step forward, then another. The cult began to chant. The golden light wrapped around him, warm and suffocating. It filled his lungs, his eyes, his skin. He felt his thoughts stretch thin, dissolving into the hum of the shrine. His body grew heavy, then light. The last thing he saw before the glow consumed him was his reflection in the glass mask, his face shimmering, cracking, turning translucent. The chanting rose to a fever pitch, echoing through the endless desert. Then, silence. At dawn, the shrine stood quiet and still. No trace of Ethan remained. When the sun rose high, the dunes began to move again. From far away, shadows crawled toward the shining structure, more travelers drawn by thirst and desperation. Inside, the food waited. The water was clear, and among the robed figures who gathered when night fell, a new one stood, a man whose skin caught the light like glass. He knelt before the altar as the chant began, his voice joining theirs in perfect harmony. If you enjoyed this nightmare and want more, subscribe to Tales by Zozo. The desert may end, but the stories don't.